Hey, what's up, guys? It's Logan, the drummer from Vanilla Function, and we're talking about some albums this week. So, my pick was Super Unknown by Soundgarden, and then we have Marquee Moon by Television, The Blue Album by Weezer, and Lateralis by Tool. If I'm pronouncing that right, I'm not really sure. So, to start off with my album, I picked Super Unknown because when I went back to college at Furman in 2014, I was starting to listen to some new music. I'm sure everyone started saying I started to listen to a lot of grunge, but I discovered Super Unknown, which, I mean, I've had that album for a long time, so I've always known it, and I've known the hits because of the radio, but I'm not really sure what caused me to start listening to it all the time, and it became one of my favorite albums. And I had also picked up guitar that year, and so I think one of the first few songs I learned to play was just the opening chords of Black Hole Sun, of course, and then Doesn't Remind Me, but that's Audio Slave. And so I really enjoyed that album, and it had a huge impact on my songwriting abilities on the guitar and what I aspired to make my sound be like. So I love its dark undertones. It's a very dark album, and I consider it a modern Dark Side of the Moon, actually. And it will always be one of my top albums I can listen front to back and always enjoy it without ever getting bored. Put it on for workout, put it on for a road trip, whichever. Love it. R.I.P. Chris Cornell. So, as for the other albums, starting with Marquee Moon by Television, that was Greg's pick, and I think that album came out in '77 or so, and I thought it was pretty good, and it actually made me understand a lot more about Greg and some of his guitar ideas that he had. And you know, it really, to me, it was a combo of the Rolling Stones and maybe 70s or 80s punk, you know, depending. The guitar work, I think, was phenomenal. I think, you know, that's where the Rolling Stones to me comes from, was the guitar work on that. But the vocal style almost reminded me more of maybe 70s punk, or possibly even, you know, proto Cars. The Cars came out actually around that time too. I think the Cars came out like '78. But yeah, I enjoyed the guitar work on that, and I starting to understand a little bit more about Greg's little guitar hooks he's got. And it definitely was kind of a proto 80s vibe to it. I mean, it seemed maybe a little bit ahead of the curve for some bands that would come around later, maybe like the Pixies or something, but I enjoyed it. It's a good album. Then we have The Blue Album by Weezer. Man, that's a throwback classic. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone's heard at least one song from that album at some point or another. Buddy Holly, or Sweater Song, or Undone, I guess it's actually officially called. So I had fun listening through that whole thing, because actually, you know, I don't think I ever listened to some of the other songs on there, and I'm struggling to remember them right now. And you know, like, Weezer is pretty classic. They've changed their sound a bunch, but this album, which came out in '94, I thought was great. It's heavy. It's basically heavy punk. You know, they have the vocals are very pop-ish. You know, very light. You know, almost not quite like Beatles or something, but, you know, up there with early Green Day or something like that. Very poppy, but then the guitar is super heavy, which to me is like a huge draw on grunge, or maybe 70s heavy metal like Zeppelin or something. They have a really heavy crunch or distortion going for them, which I thought was pretty cool. But, you know, unlike grunge, this is why they kind of branched out away from the grunge scene that was going on there. Just like Green Day, is they, even though they had like a dark sound to the guitar, they would play more pop-ish riffs. And I think that ultimately, you know, led to their success today, and why they're still relevant and pumping out albums. Their lyrics are ironic and hilarious if you actually look them up and listen to them. And not even just the Blue Album, but any of their work really is pretty hilarious. They're funny guys. yeah, so I think my favorite song from the album probably would be, besides Sweater Song, I think I've listened to that too much, or maybe we've played it too much because we've done that before. Probably Buddy Holly, just because that's an all-around fantastic song. And they do actually sound like Buddy Holly over maybe Nirvana or something riff. I don't know. So that leaves us with Lateralis by, if I'm saying that, Lateralis by Tool. Came out 2001, I think. I'd probably say this would be my favorite Tool album if I was more into Tool. And I'm not saying I'm not into Tool. I'm just saying I don't listen to them that much, you know? Other than maybe what comes on the radio, or if Alex showing me a riff. Oh, I totally forgot to say, Blue Album, Weezer, that was Nate's pick. And Lateralis by Tool is Alex's pick. And so Tool is a pretty unique band, because they were really forward thinking, especially with their first few albums that came out in the a couple albums that came out in the 90s. And they kind of like brought a revival back to metal, because up to that point I think it was really dominated by you know, maybe Metallica or Slayer sounds, you know, like late 80s heavy metal riffs. And then, you know, I guess Metallica, actually, you could even argue, was slightly more on the rock side than it was metal, but, you know, many people will debate that. And then Slayer was taking it into that really overly heavy, fast distortion, lots of double bass drum pedals. So metal was like looking for something new, and I feel like Tool, I'm sure other bands too, I'm not as well versed in the metal world, came along and redefined I think what's now called new metal, or prog metal. And so I thought this one was also a really forward thinking album. And I think I'm gonna butcher how you say it. I think Schism is how you say it. It's my favorite song, obviously, because that's the one that I know best. But it is I love that song, and it's really dark. And you know, I like dark music, so that's probably why. So redefined prog metal before it was taken away by bands like Limp Bizkit and the whole rap metal thing going on there. I mean, rap metal works, especially like if you're listening to Rage Against the Machine, fucking love that shit. But yeah, Limp Bizkit and some of the other like new metal bands that were starting out. Korn, I like Korn, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but some people don't. So I think Tool kind of saved it, and Tool is really cool too. I think I'll go see them in concert if they ever come around and put out that album they've been talking about for, what, a year now? So, anyways, that's this week's picks. Hope you enjoyed them. Give us comments, feedback on what you thought of our picks and what you think of our reactions and how stupid we are. And yeah, we'll see you in, I think November is our next show. Cool. It's been fun.